Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive?
I am. What are we digging into today?
Well, today we're going back in time,
Yeah.
back to 1951.
1951. Okay. What happened in 1951?
No major historical event, not really. But get this, a ton of celebrities we know and love were born that year. It's
Ah.
wild.
I'm intrigued already.
We've got articles, fan comments, all sorts of stuff pointing to 1951 as this year that, shaped pop culture.
So we're not just looking at birthdays then, huh?
You know, we're talking about how a specific moment in time, 1951, influenced these people and how they then influenced the world.
Oh, I like that. That's really cool.
So imagine it's 1951, right?
Yeah.
Post-war, Cold War's brewing.
Yeah.
It's been a really interesting time.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the beginning of rock and roll.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
things are changing.
Yeah, like a cultural earthquake about to happen. And all these future icons are just being born.
Speaking of, let's get to this list.
Okay, get ready. Robin Williams,
Oh, wow.
the comedic genius. Then you've got Kurt Russell, started as a Disney kid, became an action star.
Huge range.
Then Sting, The Police, his solo career. He went everywhere musically.
Such an interesting career.
And of course, we can't forget Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself.
Classic.
Right. I mean, the variety is incredible. Comedy, film, music, all these huge names from just one year. Really makes you wonder.
Wonder what?
Well, is there something special about certain years? Like, do they just produce more talent?
Ooh, that's a great question. Is it random? Or is there like a pattern, a generational talent cluster? Maybe we could go down a serious rabbit hole with that one.
We might need a whole other deep dive just for that.
Yeah.
But for now, let's stick with our 1951 stars. I've got to share this fan comment about Phil Collins. It sums him up perfectly, I think. Someone said, he reminds me of a favorite uncle. He's adorable.
Oh, I could see that.
Right. Phil Collins, he's got that everyman quality. But then you've got Genesis, those driving drums.
Yeah.
Then his solo career, those huge power ballads, that voice. It's iconic 80s, you know?
Totally. Speaking of defining a decade, what about John Deacon, Queen's bassist?
Oh, man, the backbone of Queen. Another great fan comment here. John is the reason I play bass at all.
Makes sense, those bass lines are legendary.
You can't hear Another One Bites the Dust
Yeah.
and not feel that bass. But you know what's interesting about John Deacon?
What's that?
He was kind of the quiet one in Queen. You had Freddie Mercury with all that energy,
Yeah.
but Deacon's contribution to their music, crucial.
You don't always think about that, you know? The quiet ones are often the ones holding it all together.
It makes you think about band dynamics, how different personalities can clash or come together to create something incredible.
Absolutely. And it's not just those two, right? 1951 gave us a whole bunch of musical heavyweights.
Oh yeah, it's like a musical buffet. You want pop and rock. Phil Collins, more of a rock and new wave vibe. Sting.
Oh, yeah. And how about some heavy metal? Rob Halford.
Ah, can't forget metal. And Joe Lynn Turner, another rocker. And then, of course, good old John Deacon with that classic rock sound.
It really is incredible, all those genres coming from one year. Like, that says something about the music scene back then, right?
It really does. So many sounds being explored, boundaries being pushed, and all these 1951 musicians right there on the front lines changing the game. But before we get too deep into music, I got to mention another 1951 connection that just blew my mind.
What is it?
So we talked about Mark Hamill, right? Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Guess who else was born in 1951? Karen Allen. Marion Ravenwood from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, wow. Two huge movies from basically the same time, both with actors born in the same year. Crazy.
Star Wars was 77, Raiders 81. Both massive hits. And it's not just that they were both popular.
What do you mean?
Think about it. Star Wars, Raiders, both adventure stories. Heroes fighting against impossible odds.
Yeah, there's definitely that hero vibe.
And think about what was going on in the world back then.
Yeah.
The Cold War.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of fear and uncertainty.
That's true, yeah.
Maybe those movies, they gave people a way to deal with those feelings. Like escape into these exciting stories. See good triumph over evil.
Oh, I see. Like a reflection of what people were going through, but in a more fantastical way.
Exactly. It's a reminder that entertainment, it's not just for fun. It often reflects what's happening in society, what people are worried about, what they're hoping for.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Like these movies showed us that even when things are tough, even when the odds are stacked against you, you can still fight for what's right. You can still win.
Yeah, that's a powerful message. And it's interesting how those themes still resonate today, you know? Like, we still love those underdog stories, those heroes who never give up. Maybe it's something about the human spirit. We need those stories to remind us what's possible.
Makes you think. Okay, so we got this amazing group of talented people, and we're starting to see some patterns, right? But is there something more, like a common thread connecting these 1951 babies, beyond just their birth year, I mean?
Well, think about the world they grew up in, the 50s and 60s. It was a crazy time.
Yeah, lots of changes happening.
I mean, you've got the post-war boom, but also the Cold War. The civil rights movement is gaining momentum. It was a period of huge social and political upheaval.
So maybe all that turmoil, all that change, maybe it fueled their creativity, like they were soaking it all up and channeling it into their art.
It's definitely possible. Think about Robin Williams, for example. His comedy, it was often edgy, pushing boundaries, you know, challenging the status quo.
Kind of rebellious?
Exactly. And maybe that rebellious spirit, it came from growing up in a time when people were questioning everything.
And what about Kurt Russell? He goes from those squeaky clean Disney movies to playing these tough guy action heroes. It's almost like he mirrored that shift from the 50s to the 70s, you know, from that post-war optimism to something a little more cynical.
Totally. And don't forget about the rise of television and film during this era. It was a golden age for both. And it gave these talented people a platform, you know, a way to reach a huge audience.
So you've got this incredible talent meeting this huge opportunity, all against the backdrop of a world that's rapidly changing. It really makes you think about this whole generational talent cluster idea. Like, it can't just be random, can it?
Well, there's no magic formula, right? But there's this idea that periods of intense change, they can spark creativity. Like, when society goes through a major upheaval, that energy spills over into all areas of life, including the arts, like a cultural Big Bang.
Wow, a cultural Big Bang.
Yeah.
I like that. And 1951 was right in the middle of it all. You know, it's funny, we've talked about Robin Williams, but remember how we mentioned 1951 was the dawn of rock and roll?
Yeah.
Well, one of the pioneers of rock, Buddy Holly, guess when he was born?
Don't tell me.
1951.
Yep. What are the odds?
That's incredible. I didn't know that.
Right. It's amazing, but also kind of bittersweet, you know, because both Robin Williams and Buddy Holly, they both died so young.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even the brightest stars, they can burn out too soon. But what they left behind, their legacy, that's what matters. Absolutely. Their work, their impact on their fields, it's still felt today. It's inspiring.
And it brings us back to this idea, all these seemingly different people, they're connected by this shared birth year. But it's more than just a date, right? It's about a shared experience, a moment in time that shaped who they became and in turn shaped the world we live in.
Exactly. It shows how everything is connected, how history and culture and individual lives, they all intertwine in these fascinating ways.
So, from your perspective, what's the biggest takeaway from all of this? What should our listeners really think about? What's the big idea we should leave them with?
I think the key takeaway is that 1951 wasn't just a year when a lot of famous people were born. It was a year that was like a breeding ground for creativity. It was a time of upheaval and change, and these individuals, through their art, they helped people make sense of it all. They provided comfort, they offered escape, and they left behind a legacy that continues to inspire us today.
That's a great way to put it. So here's a final thought for you, listener. Considering everything we've learned about the talent and the cultural impact that came out of 1951, do you think we could consider it one of the most important years in pop culture history? Is that going too far?
That's a tough one. But I mean, think about it. So much of what we love about movies, music, comedy, it all has roots in that year. The seeds were planted in 1951. It gave us icons, and those icons inspired countless others. It's like a ripple effect that continues to this day. So, yeah, maybe it is one of the most important years.
So listener, what do you think? Was 1951 just a fluke? A random collection of talented people? Or was it something more? Something that changed the course of entertainment as we know it? Hopefully, this deep dive has made you curious, inspired you to do some digging of your own. What about the year you were born? What shaped your generation? What connections are waiting to be discovered? Who knows what you'll find?
That's the fun part, right? There's always more to learn, more connections to make. History is full of surprises.
You know, as we've been talking about all these incredible people, it's made me realize something. Like, there's another side to this whole 1951 thing.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, we've been focused on the big names, right? The icons. But everyone born in 1951, they're part of this story too.
Yeah, that's true.
They all grew up in the same world, experienced the same cultural shifts. It's like this shared history.
Right. It's easy to forget that history isn't just about famous people, it's about everyone.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So imagine all those people born in 1951, they're growing up, and these icons, they're part of their world.
Yeah.
Maybe they heard John Deacon's bass lines and thought, I want to play music. Or maybe Robin Williams made them realize how powerful comedy can be.
It's like this ripple effect, you know? Those icons, they inspired so many others, even people who never became famous themselves.
But they still contributed to our culture in their own way.
Exactly. It's like this big web of connections, everyone influencing each other, creating this tapestry of shared experiences.
And it makes you think, even if we don't all become huge stars, our lives still matter. We all have an impact.
Right. We're all part of something bigger than ourselves.
So to everyone out there, born in 1951, this deep dive's for you too. You were part of something special. You saw the world change, and you helped shape it.
Absolutely. Your stories are important. You're part of this amazing legacy.
What a great thought. This deep dive, it hasn't just been about trivia, has it?
Not at all.
It's been about how history, culture, our own lives, they're all connected.
It's been a journey of discovery.
And hey, maybe it's inspired you to do some exploring of your own. What about your birth year? What shaped your generation? What hidden connections are out there just waiting to be found?
The possibilities are endless.
Well said. That's all the time we have for our deep dive into the class of 1951. Until next time, keep exploring.